I'm here tonight to help you guys understand what your candidates are about and answer some questions from the public. So, I want to thank you for coming. I know this, politics and going through all this takes a lot of time out of a lot of people's lives. And so I want to appreciate the time that you guys have taken to come here and get to know the candidates and get some questions answered. I also want to, applause for these guys. It's been a long year so far, and they put in a lot of time and, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So if I could give a small applause for them. So if everybody can stand, we're going to give the Pledge of Allegiance. Denny, if you can lead that, please. Remove your hats.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm going to go through some of the rules, tasks. Gordon Hendrick here is going to be the timer. You guys are going to have 2 minutes. Once you get to 1 minute, he's going to hold up to 1 minute. 30 seconds means he has 30 seconds left. The debate's going to last approximately 60 to 90 minutes. I don't want you guys to be here all night. So like I said, your time's important to us. Candidates were randomly selected for the order that they're going to be asked questions. It's going to be a rotating list. Each debate will begin with the first question by me. There'll be no candidate opening statements. They're going to have closing statements. The moderator will address questions to all candidates, but not all candidates are expected to answer. They have the right to refuse to answer a question. Like I said, each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. If I need to, which I don't have any issues, I don't think, with these guys. If I need to have a brief discussion, we can have a brief discussion to get them on task. Like I said, we'll keep the time limits here with Gordon. The debate will include a lightning round at the end from questions from you guys. It will be 60-second answers from whoever you select. Like I said, House District, Commissioner, Sizer falling down, and Senate. So, with no further delay, I'll kind of talk this way. If you guys can't hear me, let me know. I think I'm fairly loud, but I can be quiet sometimes. So, nobody picked to go first. So, whatever was in my sealed envelope, that's what's going first today. So, the first question is going to be the Senate candidates. First question is going to go to Denley Logie. With the Senate consisting of 50 members, how do you intend to advance your objectives with just one vote of many?
With the experience that I've had in the House of Representatives, the way I've approached it there, and I would approach the same way in the Senate. When you come forward with a bill, you discuss it with your colleagues at the time when you're trying to draft the bill and get the ideas while you're drafting that bill of what you need to include. Give them your ideas. You end up there is a bill drafter who does the legal drafting. But you involve the colleagues, all of them. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle, because you need all the votes that you can get. So you bring in everyone that's there in the Senate, plus you also bring in people from the House, because once it passes in the Senate, you have to have it pass in the House. So the whole idea is be talking to all your colleagues, and before you even come to that bill, or any of the bills you have to have a working relationship, and in that working relationship, that means you garner their trust. And through the years, I've been able to garner that trust. Last session, I actually passed 16 bills, and a lot of people ended up passing 1 or 2 or 3, but it's because I've garnered that trust, I've had that cooperation, I throw out my ideas and I incorporate some of their ideas right back into the bill to make it a better bill. That's the whole idea. It's not, if an individual goes up there and they have an agenda and they try to carry on their agenda, a lot of times they might even come out without passing a bill in the whole session. So the whole idea is to cooperate. When you come with an idea, part of the idea comes from the constituents. So you have to include the good information from your constituents, but you pull in the people that you're working with, and I've been very successful at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Are you ready? Ready, timer, go. Second is going to be Anna Marie White. With the Senate consisting of 50 members, how do you intend to advance your objectives with just one vote of many?
So thank you everybody for being here tonight. I counted 41 people and 2 more, so this is a big gathering. I really appreciate everybody being here. So this is my personal belief, is that it's one vote that makes the difference. So I hope that I'm taking that one vote that is going to make the difference each and every single time. I think that you must absolutely understand what it is that your position is in order to, didn't we just use the word garner? So you are trying to convince everybody that this is the vote, whether it's a yes vote or a no vote that you're trying to get. And in order to do that, you have to know the facts, you have to have an understanding, you have to be prepared, and then you have to be able to defend that position. So I think for me, because of the work that I do, my daytime job, most of the time I'm in negotiations per se. So I don't see it as being, 1 minute. Wow, that's, I think I need to have this board and follow me around because I can be long-winded. So I don't see it as being an issue. I see it as being a challenge that I'm up to. And again, it's being prepared, coming. I think that the objective needs to be defined and then you work towards that. So that's what I expect to do, and I'm really excited. So thank you guys.
Thank you. So, Anna Marie, question number 2 is, with abortion being a top issue that has been brought forward, what is your stance on this matter?
So I am life at conception. I do hope to carry that all the way through. I recently understood that there were some changes that were made. I don't know exactly what those changes are, but the Constitution of Montana does allow us our individual dignity, so that needs to be respected. But this is one of the issues I think that is different for a female than it is a male. So that is something that I will stand on principle. I will do and I've talked to lots and lots of people, men and women. I am supported in my position. I plan to stand on that. I do not want to see any funding spent towards anything that the whole does not want that spent on. So I think that we have to be really careful about where monies are allocated, why they're being allocated, but ultimately my stance is life at conception, so that's what I will be working towards. Thank you.
Thank you. Denley, do you want me to redo the question? Or okay.
I'm pro-life, and this last session we passed some bills. The Supreme Court stepped in, and it's still, some of them are still in court. So the pro-life stance is being put into the court system. I will say that there, like incest is one thing, and I feel there could be the exception of that because you have a 13-year-old girl and her dad or a relative rapes her. There's some real issues that person has to go through. But I still feel adoption is the best option. In this last session, we passed an adoption, a way of giving some money to people that want to adopt. And the whole idea there is to take away the abortion if you can. But there's just a few, the mother's health sometimes comes into play. That's a questionable one, and some, they've talked about, okay, if the child is misformed, they think, but there have been great children that have come out that haven't been aborted, and we have to protect that life. But like I say, we had some bills, and the Supreme Court is challenging those. So even if we have the right idea, the courts are stepping into that. As far as money being spent on abortions, there's the Hyde Amendment that comes out from the U.S. government, and so Montana can't control that. We still have to, there's money that goes into that because of the Hyde Amendment on the national level. And, there are a lot of issues that we see coming down. The Montana legislature gets blamed for it, but it's U.S. issues, and we can't we haven't been able to break through that, but I think that's where your voting on the national level is important, and get the stance there to correct some of those things like the Highland.
Thank you, Denley. And I apologize for the last question. I didn't give you any rebuttal. And we're right, do you have any rebuttal to what Denley's brought forward?
I don't, thank you.
Okay, you guys are way too easy. All right. So, question number 3 is going to go back to Mr. Logie first. Can you be objective and logical in decision making, even if it means letting go of your own goals and beliefs?
I believe that I have been. I have 4 terms that I've had to deal with some pretty tough issues, and sometimes I feel it's my obligation to represent the people. I'm representing the constituents, and that's number 1. And sometimes the constituents' thoughts, if I hear enough from people, it may go against my own thoughts. And so it's my job then to try and convince the constituents that maybe my line of thought is better. And if I can't convince them, then I have to go with the constituents. And that's a tough question, because sometimes you hear from more constituents on one side than the other, but they aren't really telling you anything. And you have to have some facts and some information. You can't just go on emotion either on things. But I've been objective through life. Everything I do, all the decisions I've made, I try to be objective on all of it. I look at both sides, look through it, do the studying I need to in the background. And when you get Helen, I'm dealing with all the other, I have to call us politicians. You've got to sort through what they're trying to say and what they're trying to accomplish too, but you got to be really objective. You can't just go by emotion, and you can't just go by somebody else's whim that's really putting pressure on you. You have to be objective and look through all the bills. I read them, especially the tricky parts. You have to look at that and come up with your own idea on what that means, and then follow that idea to be objective on your vote.
Thank you, Denley. Make sure my timing guys. You ready? Okay, Anne Marie, do you need me to rephrase the question?
Yes,
Say it again. Okay, can you be objective and logical in decision making, even if it means letting go of your own goals and beliefs?
Yep. So my platform is pretty well defined. It's pretty clear. But I certainly have some objectives that I want to be able to, as a lawmaker, see all the way through. I have lots of ideas, lots of goals that I want to be able to meet, but certainly if I'm not representing the constituents, I'm not actually doing my job. So I am going to be very careful about what it is that all of us, not just my side of the aisle, is wanting to accomplish. I think that so long as I'm standing on principle, I can make a lot of those things happen. But you know, in any negotiation, there's always a little give and take. There's always an opportunity for some type of you know, just giving a little more if you get back what you need back. So I, again, spend a lot of time during the day in negotiations. It's very easy for me to do. The objective is always there, so long as I reach it, and reach it in a very, sometimes it can be very comprehensive, but it ends up being pretty simple if you reach that particular goal. And I am a listener. I do listen to everybody. I've gotten, at this point, hundreds of phone calls, text, emails, and I've been able to, I saw a couple of people here tonight that I actually need to return phone calls to. So I think that is just a huge part of it, is talking, listening, and then following through. Thank you.
All right, Deli, any rebuttal?
Not really a rebuttal, but I just want to add that you can't sell out principles, and I don't plan on selling out principles, and I don't feel that I have. But, like I say, you have to listen to the constituents, and you're representing the constituents. So I have to, there are times when as that saying goes, you hold your nose, and you just have to do that. It's not making the deal or selling out, it's you're hearing from the constituents and say, this is what we really want, and they put the pressure on it. And that's what I'm there for, is to follow the constituents.
Thank you. All right, Anne Marie White, question number 4. What strategies do you propose to address the property tax challenges in Mineral County and across the state of Montana?
Yeah. So I knew that question was going to come up, right? And I've been thinking about this for a very long time. I've actually shared in some of our meet and greets that I had a neighbor that bought a house for $100,000, shortly after sold it for $400,000, and did absolutely nothing just nothing had changed, right? So I knew that there was something that was going to be coming down. I think for me, if we're looking, we know that things are always going to be changing. Nothing is going to stay the same. We need to be watching everything. We need to be watching the market. We need to be watching any and everything, especially here in Montana, especially here in Mineral County. So I knew that something was happening, was hearing from other folks the same thing, and nobody was doing anything. And I just kind of feel like you don't get anything for free, right? So that difference from the purchase price and sell price, that it's not actually free money. So here was my thought, is that regardless of what your property is being assessed at, it is the rate. If the rate is low enough, it doesn't matter what the government is assessing your property at, because the rate is low enough that it's not going to make enough of a difference. I personally had a 48% increase. That's pretty hard. I am able to take care of that, but I'm a neighbor that cannot take care of her increase. So I think that the strategy is to roll back. I am discouraged by our governor putting together a task force that actually got us in the mess. Same people that got us in this mess are now part of our task force. So I think that needs to be addressed. I think that it is theft, that we're assessed on something that we don't actually have value on. We can't go down to the bank and get a loan on that difference because it doesn't exist. And I've just got the hand, so I guess I'm done. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Denley, do you need me to? Nope.
The property tax issue is one of those you can spend, well, at least 90 days in session and not fix. So 2 minutes won't do very much. But the property tax is such a complex issue, and I disagree on the governor's task force because it's bringing in not just legislators, but business people, people that are affected. And I think if they start looking and start thinking out of the box, we've got to do something different. Everybody knows that. And so we have enough people there to try and do out of the box. But that doesn't mean other legislators and citizens can't come up with some ideas and try and put the input into it. But what happened with the property tax was that the assessments went up. Places like our mill closed down. So when the mill closed down, and we've had through the years, the Forest Service timber sales have gone down, so we've had mills shutting down elsewhere. We've had mines that have been shut down because of regulations. And we've lost the industry paying 40% of those taxes, and that's being made up by you with your homes. And so we have to get those industries back going. And when Tricon started, back in the day, there was a reduction in their property tax to help get that business going, and then we have people putting in more income tax. We need to have some of those incentives to get these businesses going back again, give a little relief in the property tax for the business just to get them started. But that's not going to solve it all. We have centrally assessed properties like the railroad power line. Those taxes didn't go up. Their assessment didn't go up because interest rates have gone up, and that's lowered their property values. So we are making up some of that, and the central assessed properties are going to be readjusted. We have a lot of ranch land over in eastern Montana and even around here that is getting an ag exemption. They're at a lower rate, and some of those ranches now, when they sell that ranch, they advertise the size of the bull elk on that property, and they're not making ag production, they're selling a business. And so we have to just reassess a lot of classifications, and that will be done.
Thank you. Anna Marie, any rebuttal?
No, thank you.
All right, Danny Logie, Senate question number 5. In the light of persistent teaching shortages by inadequate funding and low teaching salaries in rural Montana, how do you propose attracting and retaining qualified educators to ensure quality education for students in these areas? That's a giant question.
It's a giant question, but what we have done, and I've backed this up, is that we raised gave some money to some of the rural schools, especially that were losing teachers, and we gave them money to try and incentivize the teacher wages going up in some of these small communities. And that's to help quality education for all kids. The Constitution says we have to provide an education. I think when we lost it quite a few years ago on the technical education, that was, and I blame my parents' generation, because the institutions of going to college, it was important to get the academics when I was going to college. And I think we forgot about our trade schools, and we've set up some apprentice programs, and we've set up some programs to get some technical schools going. And just an example again, now they just did the groundbreaking in Missoula for a new nursing school. And I think that's what we have to expand the opportunities of those schools so we can get a better education and give more options, but we still need the quality. And I think sometimes we think that the quality isn't there in the education for our students, but that comes to people here in this group going to the school board meetings. Get involved in the school and get interested in what's going on, and you can see what the costs are. You may have to put a little more. We have a lot of money in our taxes that are going into schools. It's a huge amount. But if you make the school accountable for what they're spending that money for, I think it all ties together. It's just not a simple question. Did that address the question?
Thank you.
I miss part of it?
No. Okay, Anna Marie White, do you need,
Yes, will you
it's
please
a big
repeat it?
question. Okay, in light of persistent teaching shortages by inadequate funding and low teaching salaries in rural Montana, how do you propose attracting and retaining qualified educators to ensure quality education for students in these areas?
Thank you. So I do think that the funding is inadequate. I know I had a conversation with Jeff. Jeff is a school teacher. I think everything does actually connect. I mean, first of all, we need to be a place where highly qualified teachers want to come and live and teach. I think that we do need to address our housing crisis in Mineral County. Otherwise, we're not going to attract those teachers that want to raise a family wherever it is that they're working. I think that there's a lot of room in our state budget to allow for money to be moved from other programs and services into paying for not just credentialed teachers, but specialty teachers, teachers that are capable of doing more than one specific area of teaching. So I think that our budget needs to be looked at. The money can be moved around. I think that there is the inadequate amount is just simply not being addressed because it's not being addressed. If you look at the state budget, there is money that is being spent on other programs that are not producing anything. They're not bringing anything back. Certainly, you know, our children that are graduating, we can see if we are providing for them what they need, we can quickly see the return of all of that money, all of that investment, all of that time. So I think that that's really where it is. We need to make it attractive to be here, not just what we're paying our teachers, but everything else. And I highly regard teachers, and I think that that needs to come back too. So I think that I answered that 5-part question. Thank you.
Sounds good. Denley, any rebuttal?
No rebuttal. I think we have to support education. There's no question, because that's our future. And like I say, expand the education. So we're covering all topics, like I said. But to attract the teachers, you hear this when there are schools that have less trouble attracting teachers because they have a great curriculum and they have support of the community. And teachers want to move to those places. And I think that's important for the communities, all communities to get behind their school.
Thank you. And that is all the questions. Like I said, I'm trying to keep this 60, 90 minutes. That's all the questions from the Senate. If you guys have questions, then we're going to take a 5-minute break here in a little bit, and you guys can get other questions answered. So I appreciate you guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeak in our commissioner candidate. Dawn stated that she had other things going on, so we only have one commissioner candidate here tonight. That's Sean Smalley, and so I'm gonna do House District, and I'm gonna squeak him in on the end with a different question. So you guys don't have just him at the end. So. Yeah. So for the House District, guys, first person that was selected is Kurt Cochran. You guys are actually sitting in the exact order. So,
Are you ready?
are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. With the House consisting of 100 members, how do you intend to advance your objectives with just one vote among many, 100 votes?
Well, I'll tell you, the last 2 years I've been involved with the Republican Party. 2 years ago I was elected as a state committee man. So I went to, the last 2 years I've been going to conventions representing our Mineral County Republican Club. And this is where I met legislators and community people from all over the state. In my 67 years of living in Montana, I do know a lot of people all over the state of Montana. I went to the convention earlier in February. We had one this year. I ran into a classmate. 50 years ago we graduated. He's a legislator from Laurel. So I do know a lot of people. I've met a lot of people on this trail last 2 years with the Republican Party. And they all know Mineral County. We've got a long record of good representatives from this area, starting back with Spook Stang, Gordon Hendrick, Henry Logie. They all know where Mineral County is, and we're in a unique area compared to Montana's a big state. Eastern Montana, there's ranchers, and there's oil people, there's coal people. We have a unique area that we need a good representative to keep us on the map. So when we're sitting at a committee table across the table from a rancher or a miner, that they know where Mineral County is, and I think I can do that.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, do you want me to restate the question?
Please.
Okay, Jeff Stanek, with the House consisting of 100 members, how do you intend to advance your objectives with just one vote among many, 100?
Right away, constituents need to be aware of what's going on in Helena. So when bills or ideas are being presented, there needs to be absolute transparency across the state. That way, if I have a great idea, the rest of the state should have at least the ability to get on and see, okay, what's this guy's idea? Why does he want it? Because then they can reach out to their representatives in those other districts and demand, we need this. The example would be maybe property tax, lowering property taxes, or getting the government out of industry to actually allow the free market to operate. With that, relationships between whether it's other House members or Senate, and obviously even the governor, because he's got a say in this thing. It's obviously important, but there's something very real and tangible, and we see both at the state level and at the federal level. You have what seems like a disconnect between politicians and what the people want. So again, I could have all kinds of great ideas, but there could be a lot of politicians that don't want to actually carry that bill or would vote for it, which is why it goes back to we the people. You guys should know, we should all know what is being said at the state level, what bills are being introduced, and that way you can really press those representatives or their senators to actually follow through with what you elected them to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, for question number 1, Steve Delisle. With the House consisting of 100 members, how do you intend to advance your objectives with just one vote among many, 100?
So my objective in running for the state legislature is to keep Montana free. I have a whole story about why I moved here and why Montana is so precious to me. I think fidelity to the Constitution is very important, and we can solve problems while also being faithful to the Constitution. It is all about relationships. I haven't been there before, but what I can imagine is when you get into Helena, it's about relationships and working with people. And I think subject matter expertise is very important. So, for example, I'm in healthcare. I'm a dentist. I also went to anesthesia residency. I can talk about dentistry. I can talk about Medicaid, and I can help another legislator understand the pitfalls and talk about health care bills and help that legislator understand it. And then when I don't have knowledge about another bill, I'm gonna go to that legislator and say, hey, I don't understand this, can you help me? Because I helped you understand this healthcare bill, this Medicaid bill, this dental bill, and so we work together, we build trust. When it comes to, again, my agenda is for the constituents, and I believe that agenda is to advance constitutional rights and keep Montana free. And so when I'm looking at doing a bill, you're not gonna get 100% of what you want. You have to make some deals. And as long as I get 60% and they get 40%, I feel like I'm winning for my constituents. And so that's how I'm going to pass bills. I'm going to try to influence the other 99 members and work with them. And so that's how I would advance bills in the House.
Okay, thank you. Kurt, any rebuttal?
I could say one thing, it's 150 legislators. There's the Senate, and then there's the House. You have to work through all, it's 150, not just 100. So, there's a lot more to it.
All right. We'll go to question number 1.
Ryan, do I get a chance to give a rebuttal back to here? Is that
I think what we were doing is just the first person rebuttal back.
Gotcha, okay. I just was making sure.
Just kind of a time saving thing. We'll go to the commissioner candidate, Sean Smalley. Can you commit to objective and logical decision making, even if it requires relinquishing your personal beliefs?
So, I'm a very objective person and based. That's what I have to be. I've done it for 20 years in law enforcement. But there's principles, and hopefully the people that I'm representing are know my principles and want me to put those principles forward for the group. I am absolutely willing to listen to people, but there's certain things that I think that we have to protect very well. So I think that logic is what I do. And what I want to do, though, is involve the community in these groups and not do fighting and stuff. I just want it to be working together. But there's definitely principles that I think that you have to stand on. And while there's some things that you can work around, there's some things that you need to be like, no, this is the end. I can't go backwards on this one. And so while I'm willing to work with people, and I want to work with people, and that's my goal, is to draw the community in, there's definitely some principles that I will stand on. If it's not one of those, then I'm absolutely willing to work. The deal is this: what I want is the betterment of this community. That's my goal. I don't have a strategic goal in being a politician or anything crazy like that. I just want the community that I live in to do well and to proceed forward in a good manner.
Thank you. House District number 2, Steve Delisle. With abortion being a top issue, what is your stance on this matter?
So I'm pro-life. I believe abortion, life begins at conception. I think one of the greatest things I've seen is the overturn of Roe v. Wade. It was terrible constitutional law, and I believe it was immoral. The Dobbs decision clarified that Roe v. Wade was basically made up. There's nothing in the Constitution that gives a right to abortion, and talking about the federal Constitution. And when it comes to fundamental rights, the Dobbs decision did a beautiful job explaining that here on the state level. So the Dobbs decision gave it back to the states, right? What does it say in our state constitution? Nowhere in our state constitution does it talk about abortion being a right. What the Supreme Court says is under the privacy, which isn't, we have a right to privacy, they made that up. The Roe decision our state constitution was ratified in 1972. The Roe decision was in 1973. So this idea that under the right to privacy, we have a right to abortion, I don't think the people in 1972 who ratified our state constitution even conceived of that. So we have a liberal Supreme Court. They're trying to shoehorn in the right to abortion under this privacy clause, and I think that's just bad. I think that is legislating from the bench. If the people of Montana want to pass a constitutional amendment specifically making abortion a right, then they should do that. So in the state legislature, I will work to advance bills to reduce abortions. Thank you.
Thank you. Curtis Cochran, with abortion being a top issue, what is your stance on this matter?
I'm personally pro-life. And you know, back in 2008, I went to see Ron Paul. Everybody remember the old libertarian that ran for president? He was in Missoula, and it was a big deal. And I just out of curiosity, I said, I'm gonna go see this guy. And somebody from the audience says, what about abortion? Because the libertarians, you know, they just do whatever you want kind of a thing. His answer was, as a doctor, he's a doctor. You know what his answer was? As a doctor, first do no harm. I mean, that says it all right there. If you're an abortion doctor, how can you do that surgery without doing some harm? I mean, I thought that was a really good answer. Personally, I'm pro-life. Would vote that way.
Thank you. Jeff Stanek, with abortion being a top issue, what is your stance on this matter?
Life begins at conception. It is the only way, morally, ethically, to take a safe position. Obviously, I have personal convictions. I think it's absolutely wrong if you look at what's written into Scripture. There's 600,000 plus abortions carried out every single year in this country. Some estimates say it's as high as 900,000. And there's a lot of states that allow tax dollars to be used to carry out an abortion. I think that's absurd. With that, average cost of adopting a child, $20,000 to $40,000. It's easier to kill a child than it is to actually adopt a child. There's something very, very wrong. This is something that I cannot compromise on. I can't. I got 2 little boys now. And even the idea, it's less than 1% of abortions that are carried out are for health of the mother, rape or incest, less than 1%. Even in those things, I would be very, especially with rape, I'd be very, very careful to say something like, we need to kill that child. I don't think 2 wrongs make a right, and I think that you could, if you lessened the restrictive nature of adoption, you could actually give that child a great life. That's where I stand. I think I stand with both these gentlemen on that. So,
Thank you. Steve, any rebuttal?
I guess I'll just, I can't disagree with these guys. I'll just reiterate that, I'll make it a priority to reduce the number of abortions in the state of Montana. And having a legal background, which I'm not only a dentist, but I went to law school, understanding which laws will survive strict scrutiny at the Supreme Court level will help. Again, there's that building relationships. I can lend expertise to other lawmakers saying this will, if we do it this way, it'll survive a Supreme Court challenge. So that's what I can offer as a state legislator.
Thank you. Question number 2 for Commissioner Smalley. What, if any, are your plans with the surplus road fund with our deteriorating county roads?
So our roads need to be worked on and improved. What I would like to do is work with the current road crew as much as possible so that we can work on those things. I think that we need to get out there and chip seal. If we need to buy some equipment, we do have it in there. Let's up our equipment, let's improve it, and that's going to be cheaper than going and contracting with outside companies or anything like that. So, and then I think we need to I'm sure they already are, but continue to look for those infrastructure grants. Why not? The roads are a building block, and in my opinion, that just helps our county out. It helps responders, responding and stuff, all kinds of stuff. Because dirt roads, when they get into a mess, I don't know, it's horrible. I mean, we've been to all kinds of stuff, and you can't get through, and things like that. So I think the money needs to be used to improve our roads and maintain them. And I think we might have a level where we're doing 10 miles of roads. Well, is there a way that we can do 20? Is there a way to do 30? Money sitting in the account in that particular thing is not necessarily doing anything good for us. And And so I would say, let's look at that. Do we need some more road crew guys? I don't know. If we can fit it into the budget so that we can improve those roads, reduce flooding, and like I said, chip seal. It's a lot cheaper to chip seal something than pave it, right? So it's millions. But then let's look at the Forest Service. Can we get the Forest Service involved on some of these roads that are leading to Forest Service so that they can start maybe helping us out with that? Let's look at the state. Will they take over a different road? I think the Sear Fish Creek Bridge road right there, they're doing the bridge right now, so will they take over more of that? Let's approach it. Thank you.
Thank you. House District, Jeff Stanek, can you be objective and logical in decision-making, even if it means letting go of your own goals and beliefs?
Objectivity doesn't exist. Everybody's got a bias. I'm completely upfront with you guys on where I stand. As far as being logical and reasonable, absolutely. I'm not opposed at all to working with others, to building relationships, but there's too many compromises that I see both at the state level and at the federal level. And you as voters need to know that who you are electing is actually going to stand for those same principles that you elected them to stand on. As far as the decision making, not being emotional, I probably am guilty, you could talk to my wife about it, is being too analytical about things and digging in too much, immersing myself too much, which, okay, fine, maybe it's a weakness, but I think it's also a pretty big strength, because as many perspectives as I can get on an issue, the better in my mind, and that's from all different sides. So, and which is why I'm not in opposition to going to, I guess the word on the street is Democrat-run debates or whatever. I'm going to these things because I think it's important that we talk to people. That's something that has been kind of destroyed in our country, is the ability to have good discourse, even if I don't agree with you on it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Steve Delisle, can you be objective and logical in decision making, even if it means letting go of your own goals and beliefs?
Yeah, what I think what you're getting at here in this question is, if we get to the state legislature, how do we work with other people? And I have no problem working across the aisle. I have no problem working with Democrats. I have no problem with Democrats. But, you know, what my goal is as a state legislator is to represent my constituents. And if I get 60% of what I want and they get 40, I feel like it's a win. You know, just like Trump. And, you know, I can separate the personality from the man. I think Trump was a great president, and I'm going to support him. When he does deals, he goes in and says, you know, as long as he gets 60% and they get 40, he feels like it's a win. And I'm the same way. And so I'm going to be representing my people, my constituents, and I'm going to be winning for my people. That doesn't mean I'm not logical, doesn't mean I'm not rational, but I want to win for my constituents. So that's what's important to me.
Thank you. Curtis Cochran, how can you be objective and logical in decision making, even if it means letting go of your own goals and beliefs?
Yeah, that's absolutely part of my platform. I have some very personal conservative ideas that I believe in, but as a state representative, if you're elected, this is a big district. This goes clear to Frenchtown, the Mill Creek Road. Everybody knows where the Mormon church is out of the other side. There's 10,800 people in this district. So if you're elected, you're not just representing the Republican side of anything. And in Montana politics right now, we have a supermajority. We've got a Republican governor. We've got a 65-25 advantage of the legislature. There's some real ideological, hard-line Republicans that don't have any Democrats to fight with, so they're fighting with each other. Now, if you're like me, I am sick and tired of this country being divided by politics, and the rest of us are left in the middle. So that is a big part of my platform, is to be a representative for all of us.
Thank you. Jeff Stanek, any rebuttal?
I want to reiterate, me taking a strong stance on an issue, and the idea of not bringing in opinions, or especially what constituents want at the state legislature. my constituents. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be the ability to sit down and have tough conversations and potentially compromise in a way that still would uphold what constituents want. But there are things, and you guys know what I'm talking about, that politicians will compromise on. And I'm not a fan of log rolling. Oh, I'll vote for your bill, you vote for mine. I'm not a fan of that. I think that's part of the problem. And I'm not a fan of pork in legislation. Hey, add this and I'll vote for it. That's bad news. That's not actually how this thing is supposed to operate. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Smalley, how do you plan to support underfunded law enforcement in Mineral County?
So, law enforcement in Mineral County is kindred to my heart, obviously. I have been around and seen so many sheriffs and so many actions that haven't been supporting our sheriff's office. So, kind of like the roads, but way more important is that the sheriff's office is a building block to this community. And if we continue to, like right now, the most senior deputy on the road has 4 years on. That's not what we want for our community. And so it's gonna be hard, but we have to search and make hard decisions to find money to fund these law enforcement guys. If we don't do that, we're gonna continue to train and lose and train and lose. The lawsuits that we are in right now is because we are not being able to get the people that we need. And so I think that, we need to look at cops grants. I think we need to look at, there's movement right now. There was meetings today on the 911 system. So we need to do that work. And so let's look at state money, federal money, whatever we can do. We have to hunt the money down and get these guys here. And not only that, but right now they're dealing with this housing crisis too. So we need to even approach that. Is there a way to do that? And here's the thing, what I'm hoping for is some community involvement in this. We have to have the community have the desire for this change also. It can't come from just one commissioner. So we need the community to know that there's an issue here. I think with the lawsuits, that's becoming more apparent. And so if we get the community involved and we get everybody involved and they say this needs to change, then I think we have the ability to change those things.
Thank you. Health District, question number 4. What strategies do you propose to address the property tax challenges in Mineral County and across the state of Montana? And guys, the reason I'm asking these questions because these two House District and Senate work together. So I want you guys to see what these guys have to say when it comes up to these guys. So I think it's important that, they work as a cohesive team and, they will share their beliefs. But just in case you're wondering why I'm asking the same questions. Go ahead.
First, well, I've done a lot of homework on this deal. Like in June last year is when I filed with the COPP and decided and announced I was running for this job. In the meantime, I've been meeting with legislators from all over the state and learning and understanding this complex formula that we have for property taxes. The appraiser sets the value. The legislator's role is setting that rate. There's 14 different classifications in this pie. Residential rate, there's commercial rate, there's ag land, there's timber land, there's railroads, there's factories. So the legislator's role is to set that rate. Right now, they're all pointing fingers at each other. Oh, the legislator should have cut the rate. The DOR told them we should have cut the rate. Oh, the governor did this, we didn't do that. But if you do cut the rate, it doesn't go away. You move it to one of the other classifications. So do you move it to the businessman? I mean, small businesses are already in trouble with 20% is online business now. But there is a way to cut that rate. And then you look at where the money goes. It all comes back local, our property taxes, but the majority of it goes to our schools. So we need to look at different ways to fund our schools. How does Wyoming and Alaska do it? They're some of the highest paid teachers in the country, 2 red states. They take all their natural resource money, goes right to their schools. I mean, there's other ways to look at school funding. The only way we cut taxes is cut spending. If we can figure out a way that we don't have to spend that much money out of our property tax for schools, then we can reduce it. But
All right. Thank you. Jeff Stanek,
Out of time.
what strategies do you propose to address the property tax challenges in Mineral County and across the state of Montana?
Sure, so right away, you can't go off of current market value. The real estate market is not real. It's not real. And it's a lot of that's directed because of demand that's been increased by, so you have non-residents buying homes, and that's a small part of it. But then there's something that doesn't get a lot of publicity is you have huge hedge funds now that are participating. So this is BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard. We're talking about trillions of dollars. They're now buying up residential real estate in Montana, and they're renting it out, or they're doing other things with it. And what that does is, in places like this, where it's hard to just find housing in general because we're surrounded by 80% federal land, it creates demand, incredible demand. What happens to property? Property prices increase. So there has to be something done with those two things. And then the industrial property and ag property that gets these exemptions or these lower tax rates, that's absurd. I think that's absurd. I think that if we're going to actually play this game of, well, we need property taxes to fund education, which, by the way, you guys, we have a $2.5 billion surplus from last year. The governor's office is suing those 38 counties in Montana out of 56 counties that said property taxes are too high, we're not going to pay that. And then it comes out they have a surplus. They have $2.5 billion. So all of this factors in to maybe something that you could go after, but there's a lot of fingers in this thing. It's already been said, 150 legislatures and one governor. So lots of ideas. Could it actually be carried out? I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Delisle, what strategies do you propose to address the property tax challenges in Mineral County and across the state of Montana?
So whenever I look at issues, I just look at solutions. I'm a business owner here in Superior. 90% of my patients are on Medicaid. They pay a third of what the normal fees are. So I know what it takes to run a business, make payroll, and come up with solutions, okay? So when I looked at this property tax problem, yeah, the property taxes went up, they were assessed. The rate stayed the same and the millage stayed the same. The assessment went up. So one thing I would do is I would say, right now we're assessed every 2 years. We need to go back to being assessed every 6 years, which we were, and that would stabilize the rate of our assessments going up. So that's one thing I would do. The second thing I would do is if you cut the rate for residential property and you go to utilities, you up the rate, you go to railroads and up the rate, you go to the business sector and up the rate, they're just gonna pass that back on to us, so our utilities are gonna go up. We're gonna end up paying that stuff. So you gotta think outside the box. Where is there money that we're not just moving stuff around? It's outside the state. So what I would propose is, there's already 2 taxes on the books. I wouldn't add new taxes, to my gentleman out there who said I would. There are 2 taxes that are already on the books that I would increase. One, car rental. Who's doing the car rentals? Tourism. Lodging. Who's doing the lodging? Disproportionately, it's people outside the state. So if someone's coming in from California, a family of 4, and they're spending $10,000 to go see Glacier, do you think they're gonna flinch if you add another $100? They're not. We need to grow the pie, look outside the state, and tourism is a huge industry here in Montana. So that's where I would go. I would go after the Californians and the Washingtonians and say, give us some more tax revenue, and then we can decrease your property taxes. That's my solution.
Thank you. Curtis, any rebuttal?
Only
He
that
gave me that.
we can talk, like Denley said, we can talk for 100 days on the property tax deal. So it's nothing new in Montana. I started voting in Montana in 1974. Back then, property taxes were a big deal. Should we have a sales tax? That was a big deal. No, we don't want a sales tax. Anybody that says we're gonna have a sales tax, they'll never vote for you. But it's nothing new. It's always relative to each. In the 50 years that I've been voting, it always is an issue, the way we do it in Montana, and we'll figure it out. We'll live through it.
All right. Thank you. Sean Smalley, what strategies do you have in place to enhance the Mineral County Fairgrounds?
So I think the fairgrounds is a central location and could be used better. I would like to look at this might be contentious, I don't know. I'd like to look at, can we expand it? So do we need to move it? Can we move it? Is there a better location where we can have parking, like the horse trailers parking all over the city park or anything like that? I think we need to look at ways that we can move to make that a community area, so that we can have more events, so that we can draw more people into our community. Like, that's what we want. And so right now, at least in what I see, the fairgrounds is a limited use area. But we want to make it a central point for our community so that we can draw in that. We want to have people come in and use it and bring money to our businesses and all that stuff. So I think that that needs to happen. I think that we need to look at, we have investment money, and we need to look at projects that are going to draw people to our community. So is there a way that as some of these investments come up, we can maybe even move money and get better investments? I think that's a big deal, so that we have more money to work with. But then also maybe like, hey, this is such a big deal that we need to pull money. We need to look at grants also. There's money for those community type projects. So we need to, again, I think we need to hunt that down. I am in favor of looking at more of a full-time grant writer. I think that's important. Will it work out? Will the budget? I don't know, but I think it's something that needs to be searched, and there's a lot of money out there, not even just with federal money. So let's look at it, let's get this built up. And I think committees in too, get the community in there and say what they want. That's my idea, but I think that the community needs to speak and say what they want.
All right, thank you. Question number 5, Steve Delisle. How do you plan to support underfunded agencies, law enforcement agencies, in Montana and in Mineral County?
Specifically law enforcement? Well, first of all, no tax increases. Again, as a business owner, there are inefficiencies in the system that I have to look at, and redundancies that I have to eliminate and make things more efficient. So I have no problems with, and I'm going to include teachers in this too, increasing teacher pay and funding law enforcement. But a lot of times when government comes to us and says, we just need money, you have to pass this levy. They do nothing on their part to reduce the inefficiencies, the waste, and the redundancies. All right, let's meet halfway. I'll give you 10 if you reduce 10. Let's figure this out. Specifically when it comes to law enforcement, what I learned recently was that tickets here in the state of Montana are incredibly low. People make jokes to say, hey, can I prepay for that ticket because it's only $40? If you're speeding, those rates need to go up. I think a ticket in Washington or California is like $200 or $300, and those speeding tickets come back to fund local law enforcement. So I would support, again, this isn't a tax, this is a penalty. If you're going 100 miles an hour, increasing those speeding tickets to help bring more revenue back to law enforcement.
All right, thank you. Curtis Cochran, you need me to?
Yeah, read.
Okay. How do you plan to support underfunded law enforcement agencies in Mineral County and in the state of Montana?
Well, the counties are the ones that are setting the mills for law enforcement. So at the state level, I mean, I work for the state in the wintertime. My little retirement job, I work on I-90 up there all night long. And I've seen the wrecks and the first responders, and we listen to the radio. We listen to you guys call out there. And I was just blown away at the amount of wrecks and the amount of drug arrests that happen every day on these highways. So you guys need more support. You're underfunded. And I don't know how the highway patrol gets funded. I was talking to Sean the other day. They're so underpaid, it's ridiculous. For the way they put their lives on the line out there in danger, it definitely would support law enforcement and the first responders in the county. So.
All right, thank you. Jeff Stanek. How do you plan to support underfunded law enforcement agencies in Montana and Mineral County?
There is an issue that we have with priorities in our state. One of those is this idea that somehow we should keep throwing more money at the schools, and not have an ability to actually fund things like rural fire departments or public safety. The priority is backwards in my mind as far as the funding goes. I'm speaking from experience, you guys. Throwing more money into the education system is not going to solve any problems. I promise you. I promise you. There's way more things that go into this, which would be like affordable housing around us, industry around us. That's why we can't get teachers in St. Regis. It's not because, well, we're $2,000 below what you can get paid here, or $5,000 below what you can get paid there. That's not why. It's because there's nothing out here for anyone other than maybe your spouse that's teaching. It's a big retirement community. So there needs to be a shift in priorities. Public safety should be a huge priority. If you look at the preamble of our Constitution, it says that. It says providing for the defense of our nation, general welfare, and then securing prosperity and liberty for our future, securing liberty for our future generations, our posterity. So if you can change that, and it would be as simple. Right now, the way that it works is all of our county property taxes, 95 mils, they go to the state. Then the state redistributes it per student to the schools. It's big school, small school, that's how it works. Why can't you take a little bit of that and redistribute it to those rural fire departments, rural police departments that need the funding? Because, hey, I'm just going to tell you, it's kind of important when you need the cops to be there because there's a bad guy shooting somebody up. You know what I mean? Unless you're like me, and I have my own guns, so that's it. Thank you.
Steve Delisle, any rebuttal?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, I support the overall reduction in the amount of taxes that Montanans are paying. With that said, I don't want to cut law enforcement over teachers. I want to see, this may be said a lot, but the waste, fraud, and abuse that is in these government systems, specifically the school system, and give that to the cops and give that to the teachers. Money talks. If you give a teacher 10 grand, and he's the expert, but just if I was a teacher, if you gave me 10 extra grand, that's going to make a difference. Maybe I'll move to St. Regis. So I have no problem paying the teachers and the cops, but I want to see that come out of the fat that's in a lot of these government programs.
All right, thank you. Sean Smalley, what strategies do you propose to address the property tax challenges in Mineral County?
So, I think there needs to be something said about who's living here and who's paying the property taxes in these out-of-state people that are not living here and are making capital on that. I think that's a big deal because, I've been living here for a long time and I've put a lot of work and investment into my place, and I take pride in that. And so I feel like we are taxing our future generations out of here. And so I guess one of the biggest things that I would say in this is, does the county commissioner, do they have a lot of control in that? I don't feel like they do. But here's where I'm at. 20 years in law enforcement, you've got to build relationships. And so Denley can tell you, I harass him. I'm like, hey, this is what I need. But it's a relationship. And so I think that what you need to do is build relationships with these guys, whoever gets elected into that, and then also other ones from Missoula, from Sanders. Build the relationships so that we can say, hey, we need to change this. And so my thing is, I think that we need to protect our community, our local people that are here. How that happens, I think there needs to be some research on that. It's not my expertise, but from listening to these guys, I think right now we need to look at reducing that rate. I don't like the fact that they are taking surplus money, wasting money, redistributing it to us and saying it's a rebate. That's crazy. Nothing is free. Every time they write a check, that's more money. So they're wasting money by taking our money in and then putting it back at us. It's just it's a political joke. That's my opinion. So,
All right, thank you. And that concludes the questions that I have for them. If we can all give them a round of applause. Is there anything me, you probably need 10 minutes. So let's get up, stretch our legs. You can, meet with these guys. If you got questions, make sure you get them to Andy so I can come back in 10 minutes, 20 hours. But it would be 60 seconds. 60 seconds? Yeah.
Did you say there was going to be an open question thing, or did you have a question?
I have a question to Andy, and Andy just make sure that it's not a targeted question.
Okay, which one's Andy?
The word of mouth is like a lot.
I saw your letter, right? Thank you. You did good. Yeah, I didn't know your cops.
Yeah, I'm just like, I hope this is good.
It's excellent. Vice versa. You did good.
I think we got five questions that I picked out, just so we're not here, like I said, all night. I think it's fine. A lot of you will stay afterwards and have individual questions for all the candidates. But to save time, I'm gonna kind of pick and choose my way around these guys, so we're not. I mean, it would take 6 minutes through, 6 minutes back. So I'll just start on my left and go to the House guys. Is what do you think about raising property taxes on non-resident properties, Airbnbs, VRBOs, short-term rentals, and recreational rentals? Kirk Cochran.
Me? Well, that's an issue that I've heard of a lot before, because if you look at Madison County, the Yellowstone Club, we have Bill Gates is down there, Tom Brady's down there. Those guys have $100 million homes, and they're paying the same rate that we are. So they're paying a lot, but they don't pay income tax in Montana. Our infrastructure for the rest of us is paying for their roads that go to those $100 million houses. 30 seconds.
They're just 60-second answers.
It's a 60-second answer.
And that's just wasting time.
Reclaim your
But
time.
yes, it is a big deal. There's people, Bozeman, Gallatin County, Missoula, you can't afford to hire a snowplow driver in Bozeman because they cannot afford to live there. Airbnbs are out of hand. That's driven the rentals up. It is a big deal. It needs to be addressed.
All right, thank you. So just a reminder, 60 seconds to answer. None of us have brought sleeping bags, I don't think, so we're not planning on being here all night. So, Jeff Stanek, do you need me to redo the question? What is your thought on raising property taxes on non-resident property rentals, Airbnb, VRBO, short-term rentals, recreational rentals?
So non-residents that are buying homes here, I would be open to that idea, but man, you talk about if we are actually conservative, the idea that if I kick butt, I do what I'm supposed to do, I work really, really hard, I save my money, and I buy a home and I turn it into an Airbnb, that somehow I'm going to have to pay additional taxes on that, it's nutty. I don't like that idea. I understand there's a problem with property taxes being too high, but I'm going to reiterate it. We had a $2.5 billion surplus. We don't need any more property taxes. We already collected way more than we thought we were going to, which is why there was a constitutional initiative a few years ago to put a cap on the amount that they can take from us. It got passed. It should have been on the ballot, and it died at the Supreme Court in Montana because they didn't uphold their oath to the Constitution. That needs to be changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Delisle, do you need me to redo the question again? What is your thought on raising property taxes on non-resident property rentals, Airbnb, VRBOs, short-term rentals, and recreational rentals?
So I'll separate those classifications. For people who own second homes here, I view that as a penalty, and I view that as a penalty as being an out-of-stater. And someone who has moved here from out of state, I get a lot of flack for being an out-of-stater. I'll just say, out-of-staters have a lot to contribute. But when it comes to Airbnb, VRBO, vacation rentals, those people are vacationing here in our great state, and that goes back to my idea of taxing people who are tourists, and so I support that. We have cabins at my property, we do short-term rentals, and I have no problem increasing taxes because that would be passed on to the tourist.
Thank you. Now we'll go to the Senate. How do you, Anna Marie White, so we're just gonna go in order. How do you feel about transgender participation in sports and it being in our schools?
Absolutely not. Boys are boys, girls are girls. We've got 3 girls that are, I think, amazing athletes. We've got one that's at Mount Hood right now. She's on her 3rd day ski racing. She has come first, second the last couple of days. She does not compete against boys. She only competes against females. The girls did wrestle for a very long time, but they're at an age where there's just no way that they could wrestle against a boy the same age or the same weight. So absolutely not. Girls are to be in sports with their own gender, and the same thing goes for boys. Otherwise, it's unfair, totally unfair. I got you, Kevin?
Thank you. Daily Logie, do you need me to?
Total separation. There, boys, males, females, boys, girls, and one example. Back in the days when I played rugby, we had a mixed rugby game. Now you can have mixed teams on softball, but we had a mixed game on rugby field, and there were 3 gals that were trying to tackle me as I was running with the ball, and I was laughing so hard, which was kind of an insult to them, but they couldn't get me down just because my difference in size and strength. And I think it's very unfair if you try to compete against each other. It can't exist.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner question. How do you bridge the gap with the commissioners and, I'll just say county attorney, they put DA?
Well, that's interesting. Here's the thing. You've got to work the best that you can with who you have. And I think that's all you can do. I can't change necessarily another elected official, but the community can. And that's why we have elections. And so if there is a thing that the county residents see as an issue, then they need to speak up. And I think that they need to speak up more. So like I said, listen, I've worked with all kinds of people that I've liked, not liked, and so you do the best job that you can, you follow the rules, and you move forward at the best pace that you can, and always remember that this is for the betterment of the county.
Thank you. And we'll end with one question to all of you, and I'll start with Sean Smalley. Community service and giving back to your community are what makes small communities succeed. Can you please describe the community service projects you are involved in?
So, I suppose one of the biggest 2 things, I'm a kid-based person. And so, we ran a youth group for 7 years. We took kids to Seattle, we took them here, we had food for them, we had good talks for them, we had a safe place for them. And we did that year after year after year. Then the next thing is this, and everybody, not everybody, but some people know, I have a history, my wife and I did foster care. And so we've adopted, 5 kids. And so my involvement is high about the community, and I, like I said, I'm a big kid person. And so we've adopted 5 kids, and that is, like, my involvement is lifelong for that. It's not a commitment that I get to get rid of when I'm tired of it. You know what I'm saying? And so that's my level of commitment to our community.
Thank you. Denley.
My level of commitment to the community, I think, is probably rivaled by not too many people in here. I've been 50 years on the planning board. I was on the Soil Conservation Board for 16 years. I've fought for on the PLPW and the Citizens Advisory Committee for FWP legislation I brought. I helped get the speed limit lowered out to Tamarack and by Queens Hot Springs. This last session brought a bill to help the EMTs, the fire departments get reports from law enforcement so they can fill out all the incidents reports they need. It hasn't come into play yet, but a revision so that they can lower the speed limit on Lookout Pass and bad corners for safety for folks. The green lights you see on snow plows, it's because of what I did plowing snow for all those years. I knew the safety factor there. That's to just name a few of the things I've done for the community, and it's been constant for the last 50 years after I graduated.
Thank you. Anne Marie White.
Okay, so let's see, as I'm looking out, so I sit on the fair board with Jenny and Diane here. I sit on the chamber board with, Chamber of Commerce board with Steve and Janet. And then I am also on the weed board for Mineral County. I am actually a facilitator for the Mineral County Montana Kinship Navigator Project at an MSU. I've done that for 13 years. So we purposely are in place to help kinship caregivers meet all of their needs and all of the children in their care needs. It's something that I've done for free. I don't get paid to do it. Some of the best work that I do, I just absolutely love doing that. I do have an agency, a social service agency. It's a La Paloma agency that is specifically to meet the needs of our Indian children, families, our tribes in the state of Montana. So currently I'm serving 180 families. And then our girls are in every sport under the sun. So I sit on all of those boards. And 30 seconds more. I'll negotiate 30 seconds more.
That's all you got. Thank you. And I know, a lot of, there's a lot, but, for the sake of time.
Fine.
I would have been better.
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
Steve Delisle.
So I was elected president of the Chamber of Commerce, but I think the biggest thing, how we give back, is really through the dental office. There's a lot of people who don't have insurance fall through the cracks, and we do a lot for them, a lot of times free of charge. There was a scholarship, a scholarship that Denley had, and he donated it to one of my dental patients, and I did work on it. Anyway, so we got the patient out of pain. My wife, I'll give her some credit. There was a patient, it's just an example, she, this is on her, who came in, was in pain, car broke down, my wife picked her up, brought her back, we took out the tooth, and it was a win-win. So being Mineral County's only dentist, I do feel there's a responsibility to help everybody that's in need.
All right, thank you. Jeff Stanek.
Sure. So I volunteered my first year when I was teaching at St. Regis to help with their basketball program. Didn't get paid for it, loved it. So then I actually applied for the coaching position, coached for 3 years. Had those two little boys. Took a break from the basketball. As much as I love the basketball boys in my classes and stuff, I used to be a dad. I've done side jobs for the church, New Day Fellowship. I built a table for them. I helped with casing the windows, things like that. Community programs where we do cleanup and things like that. I've done about 4 years ago. I started an out-of-pocket. You can call it a challenge scholarship, whatever you want to say, for my students, where I give them $100 if they can give up technology for a week. 7 days, they turn in their phones. We just got done with it. DJ was the only one that was successful. He's actually the only one that participated, but but nonetheless, so I really care about that kind of stuff. So veteran earner.
All right, thank you. Curtis Cochran.
Okay, I go back a long way. So 1982 is when I really started getting involved with the community in St. Regis. I know that because that's the year my daughter was born. So I raised my daughter here for 12 years, K-12, and now I got a grandson that's graduating this year. But the community council, I see the president over there of the community council now, and I'm pretty sure it was way before she was born, and her dad was the chairman back then. We met at the school. We didn't have this, and we ran the St. Regis 4th of July tournaments, and all of a sudden they said, well, you can't have beer at the school anymore, so well, we need a new ball field. So we built the St. Regis Park in the 80s. Then we decided, well, let's have this flea market. Is that Ida Alexander, and a good example of community togetherness. Ida Alexander was a staunch Republican. Betty Noonan was staunch Democrat. Those two were best friends. And they started that community council that built that park, built the flea market, and then we started making money, and then we decided we got to build this. I could take 30 years, Gordon, to tell you what I've done for this community. Building this building was one of them. All the soffits outside, I did it. Thank you.
We're gonna give Gordon a straw. So, with ending this, like, I appreciate, your guys' participation. With ending this, I'm gonna give them a minute to talk about themselves if they're willing to, or if they would rather go and mingle with you guys. I appreciate your time. I try to keep it to an hour and a half. I've ran over a little bit. So, do you guys want to mingle or talk about yourself? Mingle. All right. Mingle is the thing. Thank you. There's water, cookies, and stuff back there, so please go back there and get your. I know you're going to kill me, but get your sugar high.
Yeah. So.